Hello to everyone. Welcome again back to the City Council chambers. And we have a meeting today, Wednesday, the 21st, 2023. Notice is hereby given pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Vernon's annotated civil statute, Article 625217, that the city of Smithville will conduct a council meeting workshop on June 21st, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall, 317 Main Street, Smithville, Texas. I will call the workshop to order. Our first item is review of past grant history. Is there anybody signed up to speak? Hi, Adina. Welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Adina Lewis, and I'm here wearing a lot of hats. I live at 603 Main. Was born at 204 Main, for those of you that haven't had that history lesson from me. The grant process in the city of Smithville really took on a brand new light when Roger Hewitt, whose daughter is actually here, and I begged for the city to get involved in grant writing. Robert, I think you were on council at the time. You probably remember how hard we worked. What I want to commend you on is the good work that's been done with this. Of course, it's all on Jill. You know, we all recognize that. And I just want to say that's made a big difference in the lives of the citizens of Smithville. So I thank you for your support of the grant programs. Thank you. Is
there anybody else signed up? Not for the grant, review of past grant activity.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All yours.
Okay. Thank you all very much. I really do appreciate the audience and council and mayor, of course, for being here. Very excited to be able to present this information to you in a more full type of format so that you can really see what's going on in the program. And I'm so grateful to be here to just help to coordinate all of this projects. And the point of all this for me is that we are able to increase our resources. We're able to build community capacity, and altogether this program and all the things the city does are really to continually improve the quality of life for everyone who lives here and everyone who visits and everyone who's connected to Smithville. And so I'm really grateful for being part of that team. So the first slide you have here is something I share with council pretty much every month. It's just an update of the applications, how many are applied for, how many are awarded, how many are pending, the success rate over time. Overall, on the average of our award getting for over this time has been about a little better than half to 50. We're at 56% right now. Over time, we've applied for 374.5, and the 0.5, just to be clear, is some grant applications require a first phase and a second phase, so I don't count that as one until I've done both phases. We don't always get to apply for the second phase, which is why we're at 0.5 right now on that. And then just so that you see that Smithville has a great track record, and and honestly, this isn't about me. This is about our team. This is about how we bring in partners. This is about how we talk about our story. This is about how the community all comes together to try to make these projects happen. And so, according to Google, about 1 out of every 10 projects get funded out of most grant circles, and we're at a 56% rate. So that's a tribute to the entire community and everybody who works here and works in the community and you know, is part of this whole process. So if you go to the next slide. So then it looks at funding, and you know, honestly, we swing for the fences. So over time, in the time that I've been here, we have requested over almost $150 million worth of grants. We have not received nearly that much money because those great big grants are the ones that are super competitive. And so we might not always get the great big huge ones all the time. And the other thing, just to mention, this is all the grant activity that I am keeping track of. Robert's going to talk in a minute about some of the stuff that he's working on with Langford. So that's a whole nother set of grant applications and grant process that is kind of puts into this whole idea of the resources that are coming into town. So I have a much smaller success rate. Overall, it's just 11% success rate, but that represents $15 million And if you look at it, break that down on a monthly average, that's almost $90,000 on a monthly average. So we're not doing it's not too bad, not too bad. So go ahead to the next one. So if you look across that, the amount of funding over time by broken out by the different departments and activities, the public works probably very clearly is the biggest, has the biggest dollar value of all the funding that comes in, because infrastructure is just so expensive. Obviously sidewalks, drainage, any kind of thing that has to do with, providing the infrastructure for the town, that's going to be a high dollar value. But even still, the rest of the dollars that come into the town, so police department, police association, the library, the Parks and Rec, the cultural district, municipal court, volunteer fire department, and then the partners that we work with. So the Workforce Training Center, Bastrop County Long-Term Recovery Team, and that most of those dollars are from back in 2011 when we had the fire. But even a couple of years ago, I was working together with Sheila Lowe to help her on a grant application that was received to help the county to be able to provide funding for rental assistance for people who had trouble due to COVID-19. And then, of course, the Chamber of Commerce and the the Bastrop County Household Hazardous Waste Facility. And that program, the Bastrop County Household Hazardous Waste Facility, that's a partnership between the City of Smithville, Bastrop County, Lee County, and City of Bastrop. And so the group that the fiscal sponsor of that is Bastrop County. So all the dollars come into Bastrop County, but part of our contribution to that is that as the grant writer, I'm the one who pulls all the information together from all the other partners and writes up the grant narrative and puts it all together and sends it out for review and then submits that form. And then the dollars come back to Bastrop County and Bastrop County pays all the bills. So that's how that partnership with the Household Hazardous Waste Facility kind of functions. And just to be very clear, these partnerships, when we develop a partnership, it's sanctioned by the mayor and city council and Robert Tamble, the city manager. When we're entering into a partnership, it's the thing that makes sense for our community to do, to be able to provide these resources through the work that I do and the work that the other partners in the city will be doing, to be able to make sure that the whole community will benefit. You want to go to the next one? Okay, I'm not looking at my notes here. See if I missed anything. Okay, so that was the last slide, was broke out by partners and departments. This one is showing you some of our largest funders. The one thing I'm sorry I missed it on the slide. I just caught it today as I was reviewing. I'm going to correct this to add SECO, which is the State Energy Conservation Office. They only gave us 2 grants and it was a long time ago, but those 2 grants altogether amounted to about $288,000. And that was part of what gave us the solar panels on the rooftop here. And so it's quite an important grant, and I'm just going to add that, and I'll upload a revised version of this. But you can see, based on some of our larger grant funders, obviously, again, Texas Department of Transportation, almost all those are sidewalk projects. So I'm not sure, I don't think it's 100%, but very close to mostly are all sidewalk projects. And so that's because it's infrastructure. Again, that's one of the highest dollar values there. We've also had 10 different grants from St. David's Foundation, and I was looking back again at my notes, and 4 of those were because of COVID-19. We got 4 different organizations that we partnered with that we were able to get St. David's Foundation to be able to help to provide assistance and relief for COVID-19 back when that was a thing. So we've also got these other, Capital Area Council of Governments has been a terrific supporter over time. We're really grateful to Ken May, especially. I just wanted to say he's been fantastic about helping us to just, make sure that we have the information we need to be able to go after these juvenile justice grants and the solid waste grants. Excuse me, Union Pacific Foundation, Lower Colorado River Authority, those 2 organizations, by helping us with a lot of our infrastructure, I'm sorry, not infrastructure, but capital projects, have been really very supportive of our community. And you can see Bastrop County, the annual nonprofit program. In fact, Judy and I were just working on it today. So that's most of the funding is about the library. So it's an annual nonprofit program. They've funded us every year since I've been here. I don't know if they did before, but sure. but they are also a very good sponsor for, they help us out quite a lot. And so, and I just to say thank you to Judy. Thank you for so much, because Judy is like the eagle eye. She does a lot of review, not only on library grants, but I can throw other things at her and she can just look it over and find all the, when the editing mistakes, when you're trying to do the 11th hour and you've moved one thing from here to over here, and she can catch all those things so that it actually makes a lot of sense. And so I really appreciate that. Okay, and so so you can see where we've gotten a lot of our funding. Texas Commission on the Arts has been primarily for our cultural district, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But I just wanted to mention that it's a lot of, you see 21 grants for $51,000. It's a lot of fairly good size of small grants that have gone to do a lot of good things for some of our using the arts for tourism has been a really big project for us, and was one of the ways that we are trying to make sure that we have visitors in town. Okay, let's see. Okay, so okay, so I just talked to Robert. This is another slide I'm gonna update a little bit. It's not actually 20,000 in total, it's 24,000, and that's only since, what did you tell me, 2015?
Yes, ma'am. It's $24 million in grant
Sorry.
funding that we've applied for since 2015.
Okay, so, and
Yeah.
you can see it's quite a lot of different federal, it's mainly our federal. Langford really helps to manage most of the federal funding that we get. So I provide a supportive role for them. So for example, with the home grant, which is so important, we've got, what is it, 23 homes have been built through the home grant program. And so what I'll do with that to assist Langford is when it comes time for them to bring in paperwork, them to have signatures, I'm kind of boots on the ground here so that they don't have to come in to do that from Cedar Park or Austin or wherever they are right now, so that we can be able, and then I just support that. I send them all the information that I can get together. I mail things out if necessary, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you wanted to add, you can see on the screen, you can see all the different, so it's the home grant, the ARPA, we've got community development block grant, and all of those different iterations of community development block grant, the Federal Emergency Management Administration. And again, that bottom line, I'll fix that, is 24 million over since 2015.
Yeah, whenever there is a disaster, we really try to leverage the available funding that's out there as the result of the disaster. When there's a disaster resolution, these hazard mitigation grant program dollars have really helped provide drainage infrastructure improvements. ARPA, of course, is $1.1 million, but of the $24 million, the total match amount that we will have to pay is $1.157 million. So that's a 5% outlay. For $1.1 million, you get 24. There have been some that have been denied, and we have active grants now that I'm still working on. One of the larger ones is of course the $13 million GLO CDBG mitigation grant, which is going to allow us to provide 4 regional infrastructure improvement projects throughout town, 2 of which have been released. In that we are now working on the design. The funds have been released, and that's going to help Northwest and Northeast 2nd Street and the Bishop and Garwood areas. The other 2 of these major grants are still pending environmental review, archaeological, can't find any dinosaur bones on it. That becomes a problem, but those are still tied up. But the good news is we're moving forward, and Langford has been played an integral role in helping us do that. And like I said, Jill, she helps maintain the box. Each of these grants has a box that's subject to review by the entity who granted the money. In addition, Cynthia has a box because she's the one that has to pay the bills. So anyway, that's kind of an update on how Langford fits into this overall role.
Yeah, and if you don't mind to go back one real quick. So I just wanted to say, so like I said, Langford does most of our federal grants, but if you look at these, we've got a lot of different types of grant funders that are out there. So there's primarily, I'm working with the state departments or state agencies, Texas Department of Transportation, for example, or CAPCOG. Well, CAPCOG is actually a regional organization that gets funded through state organizations. So the Office of the Governor is one that we've done with the police department quite a lot through their Bulletproof Vest program and so on. And then bring it down all the way to Born Again Emporium. And they are fantastic. I mean, you can see they've given us a lot of money for a small local organization. And they basically, most of those are for the police department, I have to say, and they love the police department. They're so wonderful for us and really appreciate what they're able to do to make sure that the officers get the things that they need. Okay, so that's sort of like where the money comes from. And so if we're talking about the grant process and how we go about doing the grant seeking. And so really it starts with conversations with department heads and with Robert to figure out what kinds of ideas there are out there. What kinds of things do we need to get? What's not in the budget? What can a grant fund? Because sometimes we may have a need for something, but there's not really a grant for that particular thing. So we have to go through the whole idea of what's out there that we need to get, and then how are we going to find any kind of outside funding for that. We go through and we talk about what kind of parameters we're talking about, the narrative, and to develop a budget. We get information about grants from a variety of sources. Of course, I do a lot of research. I go out to grants.gov. I do just general research on the internet, like all the basic stuff to try to figure out what's out there to bring to the table when there's an actual specific need, if somebody needs something specific. A lot of the grant searches that we do, though, is I'm on probably, I don't know, 25 different listservs or something. It's a crazy amount of things that are out there. And I'll get an email from them and they'll say, don't forget, this is coming up. It's due this time. This is what it's for. Here's who's eligible, all of that stuff. So I've got a lot of things coming in. And then when I see something that looks interesting, I'll just farm that out and say, is this something that you want to have? Is this something that you need to have that you didn't have in your budget, and we can try to start working on it. We'll get some things that aren't connected to the city. So if there's something that's more appropriate for the school district, or more appropriate for the chamber, or more appropriate for, I don't know, even, Lost Pines Artisans Alliance, or any of those others, I'll take that and I'll email that out to them, so that if they want to pick up that ball and run with it, they can go ahead and do that. So it's all about building capacity for the community, bringing in more resources for the community. Yeah, and I'll also get information from other people. They'll email me, say, I just heard about this. Have you seen this? And so if that's something that is interesting for us to move forward with, we just go ahead and move forward with that. For public participation, I'm going to go into this in a little more detail on another slide, but we do a lot to try to make sure that the public is involved in all of these decision-making processes. So we have open houses, we have workshops, we do a lot of surveys. A lot of the things, the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of grants want to know that your communities back you up. Your community is there. That's who we're serving, is the community. And so if the community has a need that funder can provide for, they want to make sure that they are connected to this community, the community, to be able to provide that kind of service. And then, of course, kind of like as we're going through the grant seeking process, and then we just have to decide, are we going to administer that grant in-house, that I'll be the grant manager, and fine, make sure that everything is kind of that we're collecting all the information, reporting is done correctly, all that kind of thing. Or if we have funding for a grant management firm. And a lot of the federal funds, what they have is they have a certain percentage that'll go specifically towards grant management. And that's one of the reasons. So Langford, it comes up a lot there. We use them a lot, but most of the federal departments need to have us go through a request for a proposal bid process. And so what we'll do is, when we have one of those, so basically even those federal funds, it starts here in City Hall in my office, and we'll put out a bid for proposals once we get to that point. And then we'll bring that back in. In fact, there was a bid opening today. Robert, was that connected to a grant? I'm not sure. No. Okay. Never mind about that, but that does happen. Sorry. So that we'll get the bids in for that'll happen for the grant management firms. It'll happen for construction firms, things like that. So so back to the bullet point, we'll decide at some point whether or not we're going to be managing it. I'll take care of making sure that everything kind of lines out, or if we're going to go with the grant management firm to make sure that they take care of all the dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And it is a lot of paperwork. So just to say, I'm not looking at my notes very much, but yeah, it's a lot of paperwork. This is a shorthand of how we choose to apply for things. And basically, the way I always figure it is the stars need to align, right? You have to have the necessity, the availability, the opportunity. We have to have match requirements if it requires match. We have to have the staff bandwidth. We have to have all those things come together. We basically do an informal kind of cost benefit analysis once we start looking at grants, and we decide, is it worth the time it's going to take and the coordination and getting the effort off the ground to submit that grant in the first place, because that's not without its own time cost. And then if we did get that grant, how much is it going to cost to staff time to be able to provide those services and to make sure that the paperwork's in on time and the reporting is done and to do all the things that you said you were going to do when you applied for the grant. So there's all those kinds of things that we have to evaluate in the process of when we're choosing to apply. And that's not done in a vacuum. That's done with Robert and the department heads and me and any partners that might be involved in the project and so on. So that's, yeah, thank you. Okay, so sorry. I feel like I'm on a little bit of a race. I'd like to get done soon
I'll
enough.
just make a comment.
sure.
So you know how I'm all excited about this rail relocation and the bridge and all this kind of stuff, but it's right now, it's got to be a low priority because it's a lot of work to do that type of grant. So, but we're still excited about it. We know we need to do it, but it's just one of those things that, we don't have the bandwidth right now to do that type of a grant. It's $500 million grant. And I think Robert would go, no way.
Stars haven't aligned on that one yet, but they will. We'll make that happen. Okay, so I wanted to go through a little bit about differences in funders. They are all of them different, and their applications are all different too. I mean, it's just a hodgepodge of, how much paperwork they need up front, how much they're actually asking. Born Again Emporium, I love them. It's like a front and a back and just asking very basic information, and they're wonderful. But like TxDOT has a whole, it's 2-part process, and you have to go through, and I just submitted something, I think was 48 pages long for them. That was just like all these different required pieces of the whole thing. And so anyway, there's from start to finish, there's a whole lot of differences out there. And of course, they all have different scopes, missions, and purposes. They all have different kinds of resources. They all have a different reason for who, what, when, and they want to fund things. So, we just a lot of the decision-making process comes in with what is it that we need and how does that align with the mission of the funder. So if we're looking for sidewalk projects, we go to TxDOT. We don't go to Born Again Emporium, right? I mean, so there's just sort of that kind of basic thing as far as making a decision about how we're going to find the funding that we need. Federal grants obviously are just more time, effort, public participation is a requirement for virtually all of them. And depends on exactly which federal grant you're looking for to decide what that public participation might look like. But the more you have it, the more points you get. They especially federal and state, most of them like to see partnerships in the community, and it's a lot of paperwork in the federal grants. The smaller funders are usually for smaller projects, but some of those small projects can make a huge impact in the community. So it's, you can't just sneeze at those either. They're all different as far as who's eligible to be able to apply. So as a municipality, we may not be able to apply for some things like Born Again Emporium, go to them again. As a municipality, the police department is not able to apply, but the police association is the Friends 501c3 connected to the police department, and they are eligible to apply. And so, and Friends of the Library, for example, to support the library in places where as a municipal department, the library may not be eligible, but the Friends of the Library is eligible as a 501c3. So there's those kind, and if we're talking about like the Texas Commission on the Arts, for example, the city is eligible as one of the partners in the cultural district, but even the LPAA can't apply because their budget isn't over $50,000. So they're not eligible for any of the TCA other than the performance program. But for like the grant projects for a lot of the public art projects that we've been working on through the cultural district, LPAA, the Lost Pines Artisans Alliance, which is our partner in our cultural district, they would not be eligible to apply for that. Of course, I think I mentioned our project mission has to align with the funder mission. So, there's no point in asking somebody for something that's not what they want to fund. So, and that can be what it doesn't happen so much here, but one thing just for for people who are out there and looking for grants kind of thing out in the world, the idea is you don't want to modify your mission to fit what a funder is going to give you, right? Because then you have that whole idea of what exactly are you all about? So when you're chasing the dollars, you have to stay true to what your organization is about. Like I said, that's less of a problem here at the city because we are so very well defined and we have funders that meet that. But just as an aside, so. Okay, partnerships. Okay, one thing I just wanted to mention that's not kind of a cross between last slide, but I have it on this slide, is that there's not very many grants out there for individuals or for partner businesses. Part of the reason that we have value of partnerships is that we are able to better service the broad groups of people and for community members and for projects that will serve our community by going through partnerships. And so part of it is that we just get better solutions and programs that benefit more people because of our involvement in partnerships. The funder likes to, most of the funders that we do, there are a lot of them, especially when they get to the state and the federal level, they want to see that we are partnering with people because they want to make sure that we have that buy-in from the community and those organizations represent the community, and also that it provides a proof that we're going to be more broadly distributing their dollars are going to go farther. So will be more broadly distributed through the community. So having those partnerships are really invaluable. There's also the idea of this fiscal sponsor possibility. So when you're partnering, I had mentioned, some eligible applicants are municipalities. Sometimes an eligible applicant is 501c3. So without a partnership, you can't move forward on the project, because if as the municipality, we want to move forward with something, but we're not eligible, then we can partner with a 501c3 who would be the fiscal sponsor for that. And we'd be able to work with them to provide the services. So that's just kind of part of how that all works. And then the other
Jill?
thing with yes.
What's the difference between a 501c3 and a C6?
It's an IRS distinction. The C3 is, oh my gosh, this, you're not allowed to lobby. The C6, oh my gosh. Do you remember? Right. Thank you. Yeah, C6 is a membership organization. Yeah, sorry. I knew that. I'm like on a roll. I forgot. Apologize. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But I mean, you're right. So like the Chamber of Commerce is a C6 because it's a membership organization. And so theoretically, a C6 is not often eligible for grants because they are kind of by definition more constrained by their membership, right? So they are serving a specific group of people who are buying into the program. So they're not always eligible for things. So case in point is when the Keep Smithville Beautiful, which is a 501c3, is able to do some things in partnership with the chamber because their 501c3 allows them to be the fiscal sponsor, even though maybe the chamber is providing more of the legwork because of, or maybe, connected somehow. I mean, that's the partnership is the thing that makes the project work. Should that make sense? Sure. Excuse me. Yes.
A quick break, just this relates to the Good Jobs Challenge Reinvest Grant, which started back in 2020. Okay, this is the way that the Smithville Workforce Training Center was able to get that grant. It was a partnership between like 9 different entities to include, the Smithville Community Clinic, the Chamber of Commerce was part of that, the city of Smithville. And then on the western counties, we had a whole group of folks that went in on it with us to apply. Burnett County, Llano County, Blanco County, Lee County, Fayette County. And when everybody came together, it took a full year. When she talks about the process, it took a full year to write that along with a contractor and Workforce Solutions. So that grant process took over a year before we ever were notified that we never thought that, we would get that grant, but that was only because there was collaboration and it made a collective impact to EDA at Department of Commerce. Otherwise, when you just turn it in and you're just by yourself turning it in, they're not even going to look at you. You have to be that collaboration, that coalition.
Yeah, thank you, Janice. And also to that point, the fiscal sponsor for there is the Workforce Solutions Rural Capital Area. So they're the ones that are actually managing the grant. They're the ones who are getting the funding in and distributing the funding and getting reports from their partners, but they're the ones that are responsible to the funder, to EDA, to be able to provide all the reporting and all the things that they require.
Workforce training is a C3.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so public participation and grant programs. So like I said, stronger public participation always means more points. We always get more points for grants. The stronger we have public participation, more buy-in from the community, more testimonials, more letters of support or commitment, all that stuff always means more to the funder. They want to make sure that the community really believes in this program and will benefit from the program. Just a couple of different things. There's the federal and state programs can require different kind of notifications in the newspaper of record. A lot of these require that something is posted, and these are kind of the more boring, like very wonky, like 3 pages plus the extra pages in Spanish, and you have to post them all. And we posted them everywhere. There was a one that I worked with the county briefly as just the legs in town. It wasn't one of ours, but for the drainage project that went down second, last year-ish, whatever. So we had to post these notifications as close to the project site as possible. And so you may remember your tree, right? So Tiffany's tree at over at Katie House. Oh my gosh, I knew that. So Tiffany's tree was one of our locations that was close to the site where we needed to, and we had to have that there for 21 days, minimum of 21 days or 3 months. That was long. That one was a long one. Yeah. So anyway, so they're all kind of, like it just depends on what they require. Almost all of them are going to require different kinds of public meetings. What we often do is we'll have some kind of an open house, and then we'll follow it up with some kind of a survey, and then we might follow that up with something else. I mean, we've been working very hard at getting public participation as something that it's just that we do. And honestly, that was one of the things. Andy is here. Andy is our engagement coordinator. That was one of the things that as an engagement coordinator, that was because we have been trying to do as much public involvement as we possibly can. That was where the engagement coordinator idea came from, was to just make sure that that was a smoother process. I've provided a couple of examples with the TDA. I had sent some information previously to council about the public hearing process. But that was in June. I do have copies of that if anybody wants to see any of that, but that was required by the TDA back in June 2022. We did a presentation at that time, and we also included that in Spanish. We had a decent turnout at that workshop that we had. That's online if anybody wants to take a look at that. But that was required by the TDA, that we would have a public hearing about that program. And that's not unusual for a lot of these state and federal funded grants. TxDOT sidewalks, I don't have this in your packet. I just printed it out just because. So TxDOT requires, okay, and this is their, okay, so this is the 40 some pages of the detailed application. This is like double-sided plus 2 pages per side. Okay, anyway, it was a long application if anyone wants to see it. But the public outreach and support, they want to see for the last 5 years. And I've got 2 pages worth of the things that we have done to try to let people give us information about where they want to see where they want to see sidewalks. And we've had a number of public meetings, and we've had surveys, and we've done as much as we can to try to get people to tell us. And we've got the Google Drive has a map that shows where the sidewalk projects have been awarded, where they're pending. We've got a couple of things that are in the hopper that haven't been done yet. But we're building this whole network of sidewalks through the grant process. And part of the reason that we're successful with TxDOT is because we have 2 pages worth of our public hearings just since for the last 5 years. So we pretty much try to do at least one thing a year, sometimes twice a year, depending on what exactly is going on. We try to time that for deadlines, but we also try to just keep in touch, because these sidewalk grants come around about every other year, and we just want to make sure that we're on top of it. The Texas Commission on the Arts requires a minimum of 2 public meetings per year. We oftentimes will do more than that. But that's part of where, for our process, those two public meetings is where we get the proposals from the community to make decisions about, especially where we're going to be able to, which projects are going to go for the grant funding from the Texas Commission on the Arts. And so through that process, we have a call for proposals. We have a group that meets, that comes in to just talk about, they'll present their proposals. We'll figure out which things seem to be the most likely to be funded through the Texas Commission on the Arts. We'll kind of map that out for the year. And then we'll do it all again in about 6 months after that. So writing the application, we've decided our project needs, we're looking at our goals, so we're trying to align with the funder's mission. That's all kind of the first part of the idea generation part. And then getting the grant itself and answering the questions because they all have, beyond the contact information, they all require a narrative. So making sure that you are clear, concise, complete, and compelling. 4 C's of grant writing. Answer the questions, yeah. And make sure, and sometimes you have 500 characters to do it. So, like trying to make sure that you're saying everything that you need to say in the amount of space available can be challenging. But especially, shout out back to my team that's all working to be able to make all this stuff. They may give me bullet points. Oh, and also thanks to my mom, because she was an English teacher. And so I know all about clauses and like how to do contractions and try to make something that you have your narrative that makes sense, and making it something that tells a story and is something that, especially these days, things are so competitive, trying to make sure that our story rises to the top. That's pretty much what we're all about. And of course, we have to develop a budget. And so that's never in a vacuum either. I talk to the department heads or the partners that are involved. We figure out the best budgets for me is when somebody says, this is what I need, and here's the URL. And then I can just plug it in and say, this widget, whatever it is going to cost, $25,000. And this is how we put it in or whatever. That doesn't always happen that way, but we do our best guess. And so we've been fairly good about getting pretty spot on budgets most of the time. We have an application review process. I never hit submit until everybody who is involved says, yes, it looks fine to me. So it's always, I send that out before it goes to the agency, it goes out to everybody who needs to review it, who's been involved. It goes to Robert to make sure that he thinks it looks fine. Especially if there's a match requirement in the budget, then we have to make sure that that there is funding for match in the budget. So those are all those kinds of things. And of course, we have to provide a complete package, because the ones that don't have your IRS determination letter or letters of support or whatever it is that they require, those all go in the garbage. That's the first thing. And we do that all. I mean, I keep track of when I submit them. Almost all of them are submitted on the day that they are required. But there are a few that I get in maybe a couple days ahead or the week before, but not so much. But usually we get them in on time. Then we just wait. We sit back and wait 6 weeks to 6 months. Mostly they're pretty competitive, most of them. We just wait for them to tell us whether or not we get the award. And I'm very grateful that we are, at about half of the ones that we get. Okay, so that was grants funding coming into the city. So that was a lot of information. I don't know if you want to take a break, if anyone has any questions that haven't been asked yet about the process of like how we get the ideas or how we develop the partnerships or anything. If anybody has any questions about that before we move on. Yeah.
Thanks, Jill.
Yeah.
I've always, I view the grant process as kind of like a black box. It's very mysterious. There's all these nuances and peculiarities about, what you can go after and how. For me, the real value tonight for this workshop is really twofold. One is create some transparency, not just among the council, but the community, for how this black box works. Who works on it, what do they do, how they decide. I still want to hear a little bit more about how you prioritize and how you select. You talk about a group of people, but certainly within that group of people, there is some sort of objective and perhaps subjective criteria that you all agree is going to be used when you determine it. The other is more, perhaps somewhat a question for you. Our local businesses are struggling. I mean, there's some businesses that are doing well, but we've had a number of businesses close in the recent years. When businesses thrive, particularly service businesses, it does benefit the entire community. So when you talk about a grant criteria being one where you have buy-in and participation and support throughout the broad community, I think supporting local businesses would certainly qualify, notwithstanding your comment that sometimes it's hard to get grants specifically for, private enterprises. But the question to you is, what does or could the grant department at the city do to better help local businesses? Is there a meaningful number of grants that you pursue and perhaps receive that support local businesses? And is there more we could do in that area?
Okay, so I haven't given any of that any thought up until this moment, really. So I'll have to noodle on it a little bit. But the first part of that is there. So as I said before, it's part of the reason that we do partnerships is because, like, for example, we've done facade grants before. Well, those benefit the businesses. The city's able to provide some funding for some facade grants. It's not about operations, but it is, like beautification, and it helps to provide curb appeal, those kinds of things. Using the dollars that may come into the city or the chamber or another 501c3, or, like the Business Alliance might be a great partner to be able, I think they've gotten their 501c3. So they may be, or if they haven't, I think they're working on it. But anyway, so we may be able to partner with them and see if there's anything out there. There's a couple of Texas Department of Agriculture grants that could potentially provide funding for businesses. The hitch on that is that the business that's involved has to basically guarantee a certain number of jobs and stability over 20 years. And so there's the grants that are out there that are more amenable to providing funds that would help to service privately owned businesses, have some really deep kinds of requirements underneath them. So we can talk about that. I mean, certainly, absolutely.
Go a little farther. It wasn't a few months ago, this newly formed Downtown Business Alliance came and presented to the council, and they had a list of things that they would like the council to consider. Some of those were already in the works by the city manager, lighting downtown and in both directions on 2nd Street to kind of create, a better sense that the downtown businesses are alive and open, during periods when it gets dark at 6 o'clock or 5:30. And that was already in the works. And so that, I think, was broadly applauded by businesses downtown. But there were other things on that list, everything from signage to, on 71 to billboards to restoration of Hope float signs. I can't remember all of them, but there was a laundry list, of a dozen or so things that came out of this, I'll call it a think tank, or this group of downtown businesses. And so when we sit around on Monday or Friday, or whenever we do at the city, we sit around and talk about, okay, what grants are we going to go after? I mean, I know that may be simplifying it, but you talked about, I'm on a number of systems that send me ticklers and emails. That's potentially responding to grants that are inward coming, that we make a decision based on availability or what we know about, as opposed to understanding. And this is largely our responsibility as a council to make clear what our annual policies are and objectives, where the city manager can go back and say, okay, this is what the city council has said should be our priorities for this next year. And those initiatives cost money. We have a $13 million budget, and a vast majority of that budget goes to keep the lights on and keep basic services and all that. So this grant process, this grant work that you do is so critically important, because it provides the dollars for all the things that Robert doesn't have, in his budget to do, without raising trash and utility fees and property taxes, all the other things that we have to do. Because if you're going to do something, it costs money and it's got to come from someplace. So the grant process is very valuable to the city. But I just want to better understand that we are being proactive about trying to find grants or search for grants that are the result of priorities that we've set at this as the city, one of which could be supporting our local businesses versus just responding to grants that we hear about that may be low hanging fruit. Because I'm sure that you could, and I'm not suggesting this is the case, but I'm sure that if all you did is pursue the relatively small, relatively easy grants to get, you might have a really high success rate. I'm not suggesting that's what's happening. I'm just saying you can see where, the harder grants are probably harder for a reason. They probably have more inherent value to a community and they're more competitive. Certainly the infrastructure grants would be like that. So I just want to understand and make sure that we're, thinking about the policy that the city's setting for things that we all consider important when we go out and try to find grants. That's all. And I know there'll be a public comment period. I know some of the people from the Downtown Business Alliance are here and hopefully they've signed up and they can speak better on it than I can.
Oh, that was a lot. So I think in the process, I go to the department heads, I work with Robert, because of the priorities that are required by those department heads. And I think as Robert, as a city manager, has a good sense of what the priorities are for the council, those discussions are really part of the driver of what it is that I go after. And so the idea of low hanging fruit, bolstering a success rate is kind of.
Clear to point out that's not what I was suggesting. I'm just saying that the quality may be more important than quantity, irrespective of whether or not, 50 grants that give you $1 million may actually be less important to us than 25 of the right grants that get us 750,000. That's all I'm asking is how we prioritize and how we decide what those are. And I know the council has a really big responsibility to be clear during the budget process, which is coming up, for what we're going to value and where we want to see money spent. And when, we're going to have to find the dollar someplace, either through raising fees, cutting other services, raising taxes. I mean, it just got all balanced at the end of the day. And I think oftentimes some of the small businesses and local businesses repeatedly ask for some things that are relatively inexpensive and they keep asking for them. And I just want to make sure that they stay top of mind. And to the extent that the grant department can be more aware of that and maybe try to help with grants in that area to the extent they can, I think it would be a good thing.
Okay, well, just to that effect, my door is always open to the Business Alliance. And so please do come and talk with me because there's not a lot that you can go after specifically, but in partnership, we can find some things that may work.
Aaron, I'm sorry, is this Robert, you're about?
Yes, council, as part of I would like to make two statements. One, please remember to get really close to the microphone. I've heard feedback that you still aren't being broadcast clearly on the YouTube channel. So you see how I'm really close to the mic. It's probably irritating in the audience, but that's just right for the YouTube channel.
I think I asked them for a few times. They could get here.
Yeah. So please help us with that. So Councilmember Etheridge, regarding to your comment regarding the Hope Float signs and the signs, yeah, we take every opportunity that we can to try to help navigate the requests of all citizens, not just the Downtown Business Alliance. I am working with the group to resurrect the Hope Float sign. Regarding going forward, you have to find a category or entity, granting organization that these types of requests fit into. So that's the challenge that Jill has. But if you guys have, in partnership with the SBA or whomever, a particular grant you want us to go for, then you need to tell us, okay, during the budget season.
I know it's a black box. I mean, you described very well all the nuances. There's lots of constraints that even though it may be something that we think is good, it's very difficult. You have to have the right set of circumstances and the right entities to be able to do it. So I just want to make sure that we stay really that we keep those local businesses very top of mind when we're looking for, the way the black box works. If there's a way that we need to structure something or do something to make those more obtainable, then please share that with us so we can try to facilitate that.
Well, I hope that the talking about it tonight makes it a little more penetrable. It's just a lot of different things. It's a lot of moving parts that make for a grant in the first place for us to apply for a grant in the first place. And then there's never any guarantee until the day you have a contract that you're going to get the money. So there's what I've been showing you is all the ones that we received, the grants that have been awarded. I didn't put on there all the ones that I went after. You saw we got 11% of our funding. It's been a lot of money in a lot of different ways. And so it's just a matter of, like we all of the communication that I can possibly do, I always do to make sure that we try to get all of the input that we can on every different project that's out there, so we can provide all the services we can in the community.
Can I make a recommendation? Something that somebody just said, the SBA. Okay, the SBA, the Small Business Administration. Okay, like I'm looking for grants all the time for various reasons. I mean, I've had the Smithville Community Clinic for the last 10 years. I'm constantly looking at GrantWorks. I sign up for grant opportunities just to, hey, what's coming in? In fact, sometimes I'll get those grant opportunities. I'll send them to Jill. What do you think? She'll send me something. But on the SBA site, they have Small Business Administration grants. So maybe that's something that the Small Business Association can start looking at those grants and say, hey, partner with somebody. And I mean, this coalition and partnership is like key to getting these grants. And small business partners with a non-for-profit. I mean, that's really the way to go. And the money's out there. It's just, you got to dig for it. And I know that's what Jill does, but when she talks about bandwidth and you're writing a grant, one grant is pretty intense, and she's managing, I don't know how many you're managing right now, but several. And I understand. And so the small business folks can really start just looking on your own. You see something. That's how I found the rail relocation grant, which was crazy, $500 million grant. Right? Do we have the bandwidth to even apply for a $500 million grant? Do we want to do it and move the rails? Do we want a bridge? Yeah, we want all that, but who's going to do it? Somebody's got to do all the work. And I'm sure that package is probably 200 pages by the time you get done writing it, So I think that we can help the small businesses that are out there by providing them with, hey, here's a link, or, check it out, bring it to Jill's attention. You can bring it to me. I love looking for grants. So there you go.
Okay. Do you have one more? Okay.
Yeah, it's going to echo, but I want to make sure that I provide context and clarity from my perspective, because this has been very enlightening to me. And, I've asked to be educated because we're moving into the budget process. And this is a huge chunk of money, and we've got some huge decisions to make to prioritize. So it's about process and prioritization and materiality thresholds as to when the council does get involved. And maybe this is part of the discussion tonight, is developing a process. You've got a great program going. I'm just trying to fine tune. So when we get into the budget process, which I think we start next month, we've got a handle on that. So I appreciate what you're doing, because it is providing clarity for me.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Okay. So, as I said, that's all about the money that comes into the city through the grant process. And we've been working on this idea of we're calling it city grants, but that's not really what it's really been considered lately. So this is sort of uncharted territory in some ways, and it's still evolving. It started last year. The discussion really started last year with when the council decided that to use the community service budget line, which has also been called the philanthropic line. So I'm not sure who called it what, but they're kind of interchangeable. But it's called, Cynthia calls it the community service budget line. So that's what I'm going to call it. Prior to the cultural district, and I'll go into that in a minute, but that was the only way that the city would be providing any kind of funds to other nonprofits. And essentially what the way that happened previously was somebody would contact a city council member and they'd say, my nonprofit needs this and that and the other, and they'd bring it to the city council, and during the budget workshop, the city council would discuss it and they'd make decisions based on that evening for how many people had come in with requests and then how much money they had in the budget, and then they would dole out the funding. So it was a very kind of a loose kind of a thing to do. Last year, we were requested to get some information from the nonprofits that had been communicating with us to try to get some funding from the city for that. And the question was, what are you going to use your money for? And so that was really where kind of the formalization, standardization of this whole thing kind of started to go. So what we'll be presenting to you later, Andy's going to take care of that, is going to be, there'll be a form that we're going to try to formalize, try to get that out to the nonprofits that are interested in communicating with council that they would like to have some funding from the city, and then give that information to you so that it's a little bit easier for y'all to make some decisions based on that. The cultural district, okay, we've been a cultural district since 2013, so this is our 10-year anniversary of the cultural district. Primarily what we've used the cultural district for is there's been a small pot of money, something between $3,000 and $4,000 typically until last year. And that what we would do there is we would do a call for proposals and we'd use the the funding from the cultural district line to leverage with the Texas Commission on the Art grant dollars, because the Texas Commission on the Art requires a 50% match. And so we would be using half of the funds from the cultural district plus as much as we could leverage with sponsors. So for example, the Smithville Historic Coloring Book, that was started as a Texas Commission on the Arts grant. We were able to, although the city committed to providing the match, it was a small grant. It's in here somewhere. I want to say it was something like $3,000. It wasn't very large. Instead of the city needing to provide that match, we were able to provide sponsors to be able to provide that into that funding. And so we were able to use the city dollars to do something else into the cultural district. So we were able to leverage the sponsorships and what we've done with other partnerships to be able to kind of spread those dollars out a little bit over time. Last year, there was a couple of people came in through the community service budget line that were really artists that were trying to do some kind of an art program. And so council was very generous with that concept, and they made our cultural district grant, our cultural district budget line became a $12,000 project. One of the artists that had been requesting, I want to say it was about $10,000, it was quite a large request. She withdrew from the whole project completely. So I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to go through what we're proposing, what we've been working on. Again, this was through a public process. We've talked to our cultural district. We've got information from call for proposals from different artists, been working with that. But so now that what we're trying to do tonight also is to try to get a little more clarity and some standardized form, standardized way to handle the cultural district program. And now this year also, sorry, one more thing, is we've got some money through the community engagement coordinator for a public arts project. And so we're kind of, guiding that process through the cultural district program, because it's an art project, and sort of that's our what we have for what am I trying to say? Like a method to be able to make sure that all happens. So did you go ahead?
No, on the sponsorships, that's just people donating in.
Yes.
Okay, that's a
correct.
business giving you money. Somebody's giving the city money. Hey, I want this for this particular program, and then they designate what program that they're
Correct.
sponsoring. Correct.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
That's cool.
So this fiscal year, this is the grants that have come in, the requests that have come in, the different projects that have all kind of come out. The first, the Sculpture on Main Youth Banner Program, Historic Smithville Coloring Book, excuse me, those all started as Texas Commission on the Arts programs that have been able to be picked up through the cultural district line item. And in fact, most of them follow through with getting sponsorships. The Youth Banner Program is one of those great partnership programs where we've got Smithville Education Foundation, City of Smithville, Lost Pines Artisans Alliance. I'm going to forget who it is, and City of Smithville, the Keep Smithville Beautiful, sorry, almost forgot. And a couple other that we bring all of those together. And I'll tell you what, that is the one where we can get the sponsorships. I mean, 100% people love that program, and it's really a great way to just really support our young artists. So some of these projects you'll see there's no city money coming in for those projects at all. Whoops. Oops. I guess, yeah. That was all right. Yeah. Did you have questions?
So that's a line item in the current
The cultural
budget.
district, right now, if you look at it across, it's how much has been allocated. There's the Texas Commission on the Arts funding. Those are the 3 granted projects that we've had this year. So Songs of Smithville, the Peter Pan at the Play at Gazebo Park, and the Veterans Park and Storytelling Project. Those are all TCA funded. We had to get 50% match for those programs, but they've been awarded. The cultural district line is a $12,000 line. I'm just shy by, $29 right now. But that's our $12,000 that came in from the program. It's a working budget that's not 100% because there's a couple of things that are still a few moving parts and figuring out exactly how much, if it's going to cost, $26.90 instead of 25 or 2030 or whatever. So there's a few things that still have to kind of come out in the actuals, but that's pretty much where we are. And then the Veterans Park program, that's another one of our TCA grant projects. We have a line for the Veterans Park projects through the city. And so we've working with the partners of the Veterans Park. What they had agreed for us to do was to provide some funding to the park for these artwork projects and storytelling projects to go with this grant. And as an aside, the other part of that funding will also go towards the upcoming website that's coming up, so that we'll be able to do like a searchable database with all the people who are on the walls in Veterans Park. That's not reflected here because that's not a cultural district line, but that's part of our partnership with the partners of the Veterans Memorial Park.
It's updated as projects come in and funds are allocated, or we had an original line, and I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, you're
Yes, sure.
fine. The way that typically what we've done is we kind of start off with a proposed budget. So once y'all decide how much money is going to go into the pot, and then we have a proposed budget that's our first meeting with our cultural district program, is that we put that out to the community. We get some calls for proposals. Depending on what exactly comes back, we'll start making some decisions about what seems to be a good project, what fits with our budget constraints, all of those kinds of things. And then all of the other things that kind of feed into this program. It's all a lot of moving parts on this one too. So the city dollars don't change, but some of the other things that come in, whether it's grant funded or we have partners that's spending some money or whatever, what have you on that, those things can change to either grow or shrink that budget. Does that make sense?
Just on city dollars.
Oh,
Where
so
are the city dollars?
if you look under the third line is cultural district. So it's
Right.
allocated TCA and then cultural district. It's actually $12,000. It's just that I had a couple of things that came in that don't quite add up to 12,000. So my actuals aren't exact because I've got a couple of estimates that still haven't come out to having actuals yet. Does that make, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's not as clear as it.
It's coming more
It's making
clear.
more sense. Okay. Okay. And then the CEC line is the Community Engagement Coordinator. That's Andy's going to talk a little bit about that part of it. Were you going to talk about that now or later? I don't remember. You want to talk about it now? Okay. So Andy's going to talk about his Community Engagement Coordinator. That's the bottom 3. So it's the signage, the Makers Market, and the Towers Nursing Home.
You're still grant funded.
Yes.
And
At
so it
this
was a
point.
2-year program. Was that correct? And so has it been extended?
Ends with our fiscal year. It has been extended. Ends with our fiscal year.
So you have been extended for 2 more years through a grant? No.
Okay, sorry. No, I apologize. I misunderstood the question. Because of their grant cycle, his funding would have ended in May,
Okay.
but we extended that to the end of our fiscal year and they allowed that. So he's actually, it's like a 2-year and 4-month program or something, but it has not been extended he's not been, they're undergoing this whole nother program. They're not giving out any grant money this year. So we're not getting any grant funding for his position for coming up in the next fiscal year. He is not funded through the grant.
So is this where the city, you become a city employee and this is where we're going to have to allocate money for you? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
No.
That's not what we're talking about here, but that is correct. So when you come up to the budget, yeah.
Well, that's my whole point to this conversation. We're all up here on city council and we have no idea that your money ran out in May.
No, but it was extended through the end of
Correct,
September.
ma'am. You have made that clear now that it's extended through September, but this is something that we need to know as budget appears, because we're gonna have to,
Well, we'll see that when we do the budget workshop. We know that your grant ends 30 September. Okay, and then at the grant workshop, or at the budget workshop, we'll have to discuss, are we going to fund that position?
Right.
That would be our discussion at the budget workshop. Right?
yes, but I feel like it's been something that maybe in May, when it was extended, it wouldn't have been hard to explain that Andy, who has become quite a vital part of this community as he has learned engagement, community. You know, you have learned a lot about our community. You didn't come in knowing everything that you know today. And so I think you're a vital part. And so I think it would have been nice to know that in the budget, we're going to have to find some money to keep you, in a sense, to say that the budget wasn't renewed, or however the conversation would have come up. So I'm glad that we're having this hearing today to find this out. Thank you. Sorry, Andy, you go ahead now that we know.
Um,
We're still on number one. Well, we're still we're on reviewing the grant activity of, well, public. Okay, thank you. No, you're good. I think I had to ask if anybody was signed up, did I? Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna let Andy speak and then we'll let you have a minute. Would that be okay? No, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Andy.
okay, thank you. Technically, I'm the second engagement coordinator. I was hired November 2021. And and I'm saying that to point out something about what I'm supposed to discuss right now with the signage, the Makers Market, and the Towers Nursing Home Banners project. The reason that amount was that large is because it was supposed to be two separate art projects, one for year one and one for year two. But because I came in November, it was the end of the first year, and I was busy working on a really big project at that point. Was the Bastrop County Health Fair. I was working with Jill directly, and it was a very big project. We brought in about 60 vendors from across the county that were at the rec center and spread out across through part of Main Street. But that was right when I started, it's trial by fire. And so that's how we ended up with a very large amount of money for this particular project. We call it several things: arts in public places, art bridging community 2.0, because it's our second go at this in the history, from what I understand, of the city running this type of program. So I'm trying to do just a quick overview on this. Okay. Roughly since December of 2021, from December through May, I held several meetings with community members. We call them kitchen table talks. And from those meetings, we got about 63 ideas and concepts for projects that could be community-led projects. And then we took all of those. We had a workshop in May, and that's where we had about 40 or so residents come together and look at the 60 ideas and whittle it down to the top 18 ideas. We ended up with roughly 18 ideas from the 60 plus. And then I created a survey, and I handed that out to the community, and we got 93 people to rank the 18 ideas. And so then I took that survey, the results, took them back to the council, to the committee for the cultural district. And they discussed the top ranking ideas, not necessarily numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, but like looking at the top 10 or the top 6. And they were discussing, I was in the room with them, so we were discussing which of these projects fall within the timeline of the grant running out in September. Some people had these large, incredible ideas about running an art, music, film festival, which just there's not enough time to run something like that by September. Anyway, there were quite a few ideas. They had a discussion about the top ranking ideas, and that's how we came up with the list that you see behind you. The sign on the loop, converting that into a future of Smithville is the theme for that sign. And we have Makers Market, and we have the some banners to go on the bridge on 95. Putting that together with the Towers Nursing Home, having some of our citizens there work on the art itself that's going to go up onto those banners. And there was a fourth project. It was the art crawl, but that would be happening, you know, in this wonderful weather that we're having right now. And so they went ahead and turned that down. And so we took the funding from that part of it, and we redistributed it back into that first one, the signage. So the signage went from $4,500 up to $6,000. And so speaking specifically on on that one right there, the signage. So I've continued working, putting out a call to artists all around Smithville, Bastrop, and a little bit further out. We got even some folks submitted from Elgin and Austin as well. And we got 4 submissions from that, and you have those in front of you. That should be in your packet. Am I going to do that part later? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was now. So I went too far with that explanation. Yeah. See, that's what happens.
Question. Jill,
So is that good right there?
Andy,
Yes.
that 12K is coming out of the St. David's Foundation,
And
correct?
that is all coming out of the St. David's Foundation. That's right. Okay. Any questions?
On this. The signage budget is 6,000.
Yes.
That's multiple projects or that's one project?
This. That is that one project.
That's
for
the
that
one we're-
sign.
Discussing later.
Yes. Got that all? Okay. Thank you, folks.
Yes, ma'am. And well, you just look
Okay.
like- Okay, so it's usually 3 minutes, but
I'll
are
be
you,
quick.
you'll be, okay, I
If
didn't want
not, then that's okay. So what do I say? Michelle Gardella, 502 Burleson. Where's the camera for YouTube? Sorry, I'm just kidding. Okay. So, my biggest passion is working with senior citizens. I have my degree in art therapy, and that's just where my heart beats the hardest. So I am so grateful for this meeting because I too saw it as a black box. I previously, as a member of the Grant Writers Association of America, have had tons of success receiving grants in other cities where I've lived, in Connecticut and Austin, Dripping Springs, also as a public school teacher. And when I moved here, I just kept hitting wall after wall. It seemed like whoever I spoke to, no one knew where to point. And when they did point me in a direction, it was to a certain number of people who have been on the receiving ends of the funds, and to go to them and ask them how they receive the funds, and they were not willing to share. So when I say that, I am so grateful, and on behalf of all the senior citizens that I've been working with, we are all very grateful for this meeting. So I just want to say that right away. The one thing that I would love to say, and I guess it's a question, but it's also sort of a request. In my vast experience with grant writing, being both on the recipient and working for nonprofits, basically doing what Jill does. So for example, we take these line items. Typically, there's a diverse representation on the groups who select the grants. It seems like when Andy was doing his presentation and he said, I brought it to staff members, from what I've heard, I still haven't heard that come up here. It seems like there's only one or two people who keep making the decisions on all these things. And I've never seen that before. And so I guess on behalf of all the people that I've spoken with and on behalf of myself, trying to get some money for the senior citizens, specifically the seniors at the rec center, I would love to see community members, committees that represent our community here and not just staff members. There's also some times maybe conflict of interest. For example, like one of the people, am I allowed to say names or no? Okay, so I think it's Jill. From what I've gathered in my little magnifying glass detective role over the past 2.5 years, seems like Jill, Judy, and April are the ones who make pretty much all the decisions, specifically even on the facades, which aren't on this list, but she mentioned them earlier in her presentation. I am begging y'all to sort of not have it that way. I think it is so critical in all avenues of leadership and decision making to have a diverse body that includes citizens of the town to be part of the decision making processes of not only what grants, but who's getting awarded those grants. Thank you. Have a great day.
Apologize. Did I? Yes, come back up here. Did anybody have any new? No, come back up here. Did anybody have any questions? I'm sorry.
I have a question. I mean, I appreciate your comments. I think it hits for me central to something that I would love to see us do more of too, which is utilize citizen task forces and committees, not
Yes.
just for grants, but for a variety of things. And, we tested that a little bit, in the last month or so with the farmer's market, where we put 3 people and we had them go off and come back and make recommendations. I think when you're in a town with limited resources, and probably all towns are, but particularly small rural towns, Robert is always challenged to do all the things to keep the lights on, the water running, all the things. And he's challenged to not raise fees too much or to not cut services. It's a real challenge to do what he does every year with the budget. So anything we can do to provide, free labor and also accomplish a fairness objective too, I think is worthwhile. So I appreciate you bringing it up.
And like I said, it's not reinventing the wheel. This is typically how it's done. I've actually never seen it done this way. So, and I know of several community members who would be happy to join committees today. So thank you for that.
I'd like to add some clarification to some of this. It's not just the 3 council members and myself get requests from all organizations, a wide variety of organizations each year. And if you go back to the community service award slide, please.
I was
So
speaking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know you are,
Yeah.
but they have an opportunity to say yes or no to whom to give money to. And they're representatives of the community, and they're going to exercise that
Who's
right
they?
coming
Sorry.
up. The council.
Okay.
So all of these people who receive money, no, that's not the one. Discussion, community service awards. You don't have it yet. Sorry. The point is that your point is well taken. There needs to be more engagement with citizens and the council so that when budget time does come, it's not just a handful of people making these decisions. That may be the appearance, but that's not really how this went down, because it's not just April, Jill, and who else did you say? And Judy making the grants. It's all of us collectively.
So that slide we just saw, the one that was the community, the one that was up previously,
Service
is
awards.
what you're saying, the cultural district. What I'm hearing you say is that this form right here, that all of these people right here sitting on city council
Only on the.
had a say in all of these line items. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
No,
Oh.
that's not what I said. It's community service awards. We're talking about philanthropic and community giving. There's a lot of people who ask for money.
Oh, gotcha. I
Yeah.
think I'm specifically talking about cultural district because there is this idea that there's a very select, close-knit group of friends who seem to be part of the decision-making and awarding. And what I hear you saying is that the city council has the opportunity to say no to any of these, but I have talked to I guess maybe I'll just ask, did y'all see this and have a chance to say yes or no to who got any of these?
We had letters recommending for just the community, not the cultural district. That part, no. The community service awards, yes. Oops, sorry.
I would add, I mean, my recollection is we do get a chance. What happens with almost everything is city staff comes to the council with recommendations.
Who is city staff?
We'll
Sorry.
call it Robert and his whole staff, whoever that is. We
Okay.
come to council. The only things that can happen in this city are happen by the council. Council makes decisions. The
During
only
city
way-
council meetings?
the only way you can make a decision is to have it done in a public meeting. And the only way you can do that is it be on the agenda. So each year when we go through the budget process, you know, there are initiatives brought forward. For me, what happens prior to that recommendation is what I'm really referring to. Anything that was presented that was approved, obviously everyone that was at the meeting had an opportunity to ask questions and voted on it. But I'm not ever really sure that the recommendation that comes to the council is reflective of the citizens. We trust the staff is doing that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't trust it. I'm just saying, I think we would be better served if we identified certain initiatives in town and we as a council established committees and task forces made up of citizens that aren't employed at the city, citizens
Yes.
that, I mean, people that don't work and serve on other boards and commissions where there's the potential for conflicts. Just people like Ted and Fred and Jeannie Ralph for the farmers market. I mean, I could get 100 people
Yes.
to serve on committees of 5 or 6 in a little while. When we talk about funding for, you know, hot tax, I've got some comments about that where we get more citizen engagement. I think Robert said it right. We should be looking at in executing on ways to get better engagement from the citizens. And I hear a lot, well, we can't get people to serve. I would just respectfully disagree with that. I think we have a responsibility to go out and make people aware and recruit people. And every time I've gone out and tried to recruit people to serve, I've not had any problems doing that. So I still agree with you. I think we need more citizen task forces and committees to work on things. But to answer your question, I think all of us certainly, I was well aware when they presented the budget, we had an opportunity to say, we don't want this one. So we voted on that. On the community part,
community
we
part,
voted
yeah.
on that. Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember that discussion and
Yes.
I'm comfortable personally with, you know, the recipients and the award that the council made.
I think I'm just speaking, I should have been more specific.
Okay. right.
Because you had spoken about, I watched it at home at first with, again, my daughter was sick. So I heard you mention transparency. And I think that that's super important in the way that other places do it is not only do they announce the grants that will be forthcoming in the fiscal year, but then they then report on who received them. I think that was something that they said they wanted to work on, but I just am grateful to hear that you support having a more diverse decision-making and community engagement, because I think that that'll, number one, create more faith and trust, which will then create more people wanting to get involved. I think it'll be a beautiful snowball effect.
Jim, my number, I still want to visit with you. I apologize because I
That's
just brought up
okay.
the email, but you did send me your number and I apologize, but we will get together and we'll visit further. You have a lot of great ideas.
Okay, I just have one more question on the
I'm ready.
SCC. On the CEC portion, I appreciate that Andy said the numbers of people that showed up and they did the survey and they really tried to get so much community. And I think that was a huge change. I've heard nothing but positive things about
Oh,
Andy really going out into the community and being a really powerful force, approachable. And I know that made a lot of people feel great. I know that the signage portion is something that they took applications for. I am curious about the other two pieces and if like Maker's Market, is that a person who's receiving it? And then as somebody who works so closely as an art therapist with senior communities, I'm also curious about the Towers Nursing Home. Is that Towers themselves who's receiving it through their activities coordinator? I'm just unclear because when they had the whole community meeting, I think that the impression that a lot of people got in the community was that they were going to also be able to be able to apply for all 12,000 of those dollars, not just one of the projects. So I guess that was the other piece that I think I was confused about. And again, speaking on behalf of a lot of people who were confused about how that shook out. So I don't know if Andy can speak on that or why they didn't end up taking applications for the other two projects or who is getting those projects because there's no names next to them.
Thank you for your comments. Don't
Okay.
go yet.
Okay.
It takes courage to do that, but I do hear what you're saying, and I think the cultural district committee, that's Jill, April, and Judy. That's specific to this. Not sure where the other decision-making process lies, but I hear the call for diversity and more inclusion just in terms of numbers of people, because it avoids a lot of perception issues that might be there. And this goes to me to process. So you're helping us understand that we need process here just so that we can make sure everybody's comfortable with the way things are going. So thank you for that. I didn't have a question. I just wanted you to hear what I said.
It's
Thank
the
you,
beginning
Michelle.
of building a foundation of and incorporating what you have brought to the table. So we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Janice, you good? You good?
Be
Oh, you
on
do have
the,
a question.
the Veterans Park, on the TCA grant. Now, the Friends of the Veterans Park, they actually had to apply for that funding, correct? Okay, the 2,500.
That's one of those places where they would not have been, they wouldn't have been eligible because they're not making $50,000 or more. So as the cultural district, we worked with them as a partner to be able to work out that particular grant project.
Okay, thank you.
Want you to know I appreciate what you're doing with the seniors and everything that I've seen you be doing lately. You and Ms. Bush are really doing a good job, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is someone going to answer though about the CEC? Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so I think as Andy mentioned, we're trying to, the first thing is that we have a very short window of time to be able to make these projects happen. So we are working together with the different organizations that have already started these projects. So like the Makers Market, the person from Courtney, who's doing the farmers market, we've approached her. We've approached Bernadette Knoll, who's doing some makers things. We're trying to figure out from the community that already has makers programs. We approached Michelle Rutherford because she had a makers market program going. We haven't gotten that nailed down yet, but we were approaching those people, the people that we know are doing makers markets, to be able to facilitate making those funds, to be able to spend that funding in time. Frankly, we just have a very short amount of time to be able to get that done. And so we're working with the people in town that we are aware are working with the makers market, and we're asking them to provide different kinds of proposals so that we can figure out how to best allocate those funds. With the Towers Nursing Home, I just yesterday got the go ahead from Jake over at the Towers that he wants to have this program going. So I have to work with him to figure out exactly how that's going to be allocated. Ultimately, most of the funding that's going to go towards that project is going to go towards the banners that'll go on Main. So I'm sorry, not on Main, on the State Highway 95. The majority of it will go towards creating those banners and getting the hardware that's necessary for that. And for a person who would be, and I don't know if it would be Jake's call to say who's going to be the person who would be working with the seniors to create the artwork. We have to just really work with him because we want to partner with the Towers Nursing Home on making that one happen. The signage on Loop 230, that was, as Michelle knows, she submitted a proposal to us. So that was something that we did a call for artists. We had 4 artists, and we'll be talking about that later as far as that's concerned. I did want to just mention, as far as the cultural district, we are in the process. We're always trying to have more people involved in it. We started off in the beginning of the whole thing. We started with a steering committee. So I think the first several years we had 10 to 20 people that would show up at every meeting. That kind of dropped off over time. Every time that we have a cultural district meeting that's required twice a year, but oftentimes is more than twice a year, we always send out information to over 150 people who have expressed interest in the cultural district. So we're always trying to make sure that we do get those diverse voices. Part of the decision making that happens when we're going after the TCA grants has to do with what the community is saying when we're in those meetings. And oftentimes, if we have the couple of people who are providing information about the projects they'd like to see, we're always trying to make sure that those things are something that would be good for the community, that the community has a voice in exactly what it is that we are going to be trying to go after. It's not a perfect process. We're still trying to get more people involved. We don't always get as many people at the meetings that we would like to have, but the door is always open to hear people's ideas and how they'd want to start to work on different kinds of cultural district projects. One of the reasons that we are here tonight to talk about that is to figure out exactly how we're going to be moving forward with the whole cultural district program, because especially starting with $3,000 to $4,000, it's just supporting these couple of things that have been historically something that's been very helpful for the community, that the Sculptures on Main, the youth banner programs, the historic Smithville coloring books. Those projects don't cost more than the $3,000 to $4,000. So this year was the first time we've ever had any funding to be able to really go out and try to get a lot more of public involvement in it. We've really worked on trying to bring people to the table to be able to hear their ideas. And I'm very disappointed to hear that you hear from a lot of people that that's not the case. That is not at all has ever been our intention. So, but we are in the process of improving this program. And so we'll just work with the community to try to make it better.
Everybody can hear you, please. You're fine.
So for example, let's take Bernadette. So she got the Common Thread money. She's been approached about the Makers Market, I know, because she talks about it. And she also got money from the library. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding that she got all of those checks with city funding without. That's what I'm not understanding. Like, is it because she's friends with them? She was able to hear about these opportunities. They're not open to the public. So how else would anybody else have the opportunity to apply? I think that's what feels really tricky. And I'm really trying to understand, and I'm still not understanding, because in other cities and towns, you apply to be on a list. And they have the list at the beginning of the year of they vet the list, they go through, they make sure that these people have legitimate backgrounds, that they're able to connect. And with that list, that's where they make their decisions from. So if we look at Bernadette, I'm confused how she got this money from all these three sources if there was no open call. I know they keep saying time is of the essence, but they knew the money last year wasn't. I'm just confused and looking for some clarity.
I think Jill has an answer for you.
There is an open call 100% of the time on our website. So it is. We have a call for proposals on our website that's there all of the time. And so when we go to our meetings, we make sure we try to send that information out. We're doing our best. I would like to work with you. I would love to have some sort of a list. That would be great. If I could learn from other cities. This is the first time we're really doing something that's like bigger than just a couple of $1,000s. Did you want to? And Bernadette was at that. Yeah. And part of it is who shows up, right? So part of it is that, well, Jenny was there. Yeah. Okay. Can we? If you provide a form with us, then we'll be able to evaluate that at the meetings that we have prior to those. We time them so that we can really work on the Texas the Commission on the Arts grant program. That's how we time the meeting so that we can make a decision as a committee, as a group of people who are coming to decide which ones are going to be the ones that we go after. If there's extra funding, like there was for Bernadette, because we happen to have this, she provided a proposal and we were able to work it out for, okay.
Michelle,
we could
Michelle
please do
and
this
Jill,
another
how about
time.
if we just plan on having a meeting and we all sit down and Okay, yes, and so we will get a day and then we will sit down and we will get your answers. It's not a problem. That's fine. We can, we can make a date and we can have a meeting. That's not a problem. And that way everybody can have a chance to explain what's going on. But we're going to go to the next topic for today, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. And I have your phone number and we will make sure that we make contact and we'll make a meeting, okay? Your head, okay? You're okay. Thank you. We're going to move to the next item though, but we're going to visit your item, okay? Later.
Just a comment for everyone, when we were awarded the cultural district designation, we were one of only 26 other cities in the entire state of Texas to receive that designation. Currently, we're number 48. There's 48 that have received the cultural district designation. So it's not a small feat. So thanks to all who have helped us get to where we are today.
Do you wanna go to the-
Just one last one, Jill, of the $57,000 or $58,000 that was allocated, what do you expect will what amount will be funded, you think?
If you look at the TCA, that's for sure. The match is required and that's allocated across a couple of different lines. So that much is for sure. The community engagement coordinator, that's what we have in that pot of money for that project. The other lines where you see where the library, for example, provides those funding, those opportunities have already been funded. A couple of sponsorships are things where, I think the youth banner has already been paid for. So that's already done with the past. These other couple of things where we've got Baz Music, he's working on his project. Jenny Bush and I are talking about the wall. I'm not sure if that's going to turn into a thing. We'll have to talk about that and see how that works.
So the ones that are under the TCA column, like
Yes,
the 4,500 for the Songs of Smithville, the 2,000 and 2,500, those have all been funded or been done.
yes. Well, they're either in process or finished. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but they'll all be done by August 31st. They all have to be done by August 31st. Okay. Do you want to go to the next? Okay, so this is where the discussion and action comes in, because I do want to standardize this process. I want to make it a little bit have clarity for me and for just as a cultural district program. I want to make sure that we do have this form set up so that we have what we need to have. That form, the first page, is something that's been available since I think 2018 on our cultural district website. So that's been a call for artists, or a modification of that anyway. This was modified for tonight, but a form similar to that has been available on our cultural district website since about 2018 or so. That's what we use when we're trying to solicit ideas to be able to work on those TCA grants every 6 months. So that's when we have our cultural district meetings, that's what how we understand what kinds of projects are out there in the community. Jenny provided one of her forms. I don't know. Did you actually give me a form? I don't remember. Well, anyway, but yeah, way back when. Yeah. So some of them don't always get funded immediately because we just they don't, for whatever reason, we don't have the match required, or we don't, something else is more time sensitive or what have you. So, but I have a list of all the different the different ideas that have been bubbling up for the past several years. So, but I'd like for you to just take a look at the form that's there, and either let me know if there's something you want to have changed on that, if there's anything that you would like for me to, however you want me to make changes to this. The one thing we wanted to call attention to is that because the cultural district, because the Texas Commission on the Arts requires a 50% match, one of the things that we've always encouraged on this form is to be able to figure out if the project has some sort of sponsorship capabilities. So if somebody comes in to say, this is my project, what I would like to do, and then here are the partners that I would have to provide sponsorships, so that we can extend those dollars from the city, that the city doesn't necessarily have to be on the hook for the match. There's a way for the community to provide the funds, like, for example, with the banner project. We have a whole lot of people who are willing to provide sponsorships for the banner program. So the city it's coming through the cultural district, but the city hasn't needed to actually expend funds for that for a couple of years. So anyway, so this is, it's basically your contact information, a brief description of the project, a plan for public participation, because that is something that we value, is we want to make sure that all these projects are something that the public is going to be a part of as much as we possibly can. The total cost, the cultural district is recommending that we require a 10% cash or in-kind match from the artist that's making the proposal, unless they're being considered for sponsorship for the TCA, whereas the match would go a 50-50 match requirement. On the backside, it talks a little bit about making sure that you have your checklist. So we have our project proposal, artist statement or qualifications or a resume, a W-9 form, an Excel budget spreadsheet, which I'm going to get to in a minute because I had other questions for you about that. And a letter of commitment if there's any match requirements. If the proposal would be by a nonprofit, we'd want to have the IRS letter of determination, something to prove that they are a nonprofit, but this wouldn't necessarily have to go to a nonprofit. We're looking for artists, so this is going to primarily fund individuals. Optionals would be sketches, materials list, any other information to help envision the project and to understand how well the project work, and in kind of letters of support from the community members or other organizations. And then I put together some criteria to discuss how we would make that decision so that it is more objective, and it's not, you know, I mean, I understand that it's difficult to always substantiate exactly why you've chosen one thing over another. So this would give us what we need by numerically to be able to decide what it is that we're going to be doing. For those of you who can't read that because it's kind of impossible to read, the criteria we're talking about is, first of all, proposal includes all required elements. That's 5 points. Feasibility, project has to have the potential to be implemented. A project budget that's realistic and researched, experience and qualifications, and if applicable, an IRS letter to make sure that the artist has the experience and qualifications to make the project successful. Any kind of commitment letters to which are necessary to prove the match is secured. The impact on the community, to make sure that the project is going to benefit the majority of Smithville residents, aesthetic quality, to make sure that the artwork is of high quality. And then bonus points would be the sketches, the optional items, the sketches, materials list, etc., and community support. So that's, if there's anything here that you want me to make changes, I'd be very happy to make changes, but I'd like for this is the action part.
I think we have someone that would like to speak. Please
Good
state
evening.
your
My name is Lee Kilgore. I live at 403 Ramona. Thank you for hearing me today. In regards to this application, I had a couple of questions. One, who is actually doing the criteria? So I'm assuming that there is a cultural district committee that goes through the applications and they are the ones that are doing the scoring, but I'd like clarification on that. Question one. Question two, it's not really a question, it's a comment. I think it's a fantastic idea to have artists or whoever is getting the grant to come back to city council and talk through what worked, what didn't work. As you, to Michelle's point, as you're talking about who's going to be the beneficiary of future grants, it might be a great idea to understand, working within the city, working with other leaders in the community, what worked, what didn't work. And I think that's fantastic. So I love that that's there.
Okay, as for the criteria, this is an evolving process. As I said earlier in the whole program, we are still trying to work it out to the best that we possibly can. Right now, the cultural district consists because the Texas Commission on the Arts. Okay, so a little background. 10 years ago, we started with a steering committee, as I said, was between 10 to 20 people would show up. That dropped after a couple of years, that dropped off to like David Harrington and 2 other people. So we asked Texas Commission on the Arts if we could restructure the organization just to be able to make it work. And so we have a liaison from the LPAA, which is our arts partner, a liaison from the city, and because the city's cultural department is the library department head. So that's the 3 people that are making up the cultural district committee to be able to bring discussions together. When we have in the past, when we tried to make as open as possible the process to be able to make those decisions, we take input from the community. We haven't had a format for criteria. I think that, and I'm glad you brought it up. Moving forward, I've never liked the three of us being the ones who are perceived as being the ones who make the decisions. What we need to do is to have that steering committee back and to put that together. We've had people just not come to meetings and not come to call for proposals and not show up. And so if we can get people to show up, then, absolutely. This idea of having more people involved in the process is absolutely something that we've always wanted to have from the start. So I think that maybe not for tonight, but in a future something, we can bring a proposal together for what that might look like as far as like, I don't know if you want to have another committee like the long name committee or the P&Z or the whatever, but if you want to, absolutely tell me what you wanted me to do and we'll make it kind of come together and make it work. For tonight's purposes, I want to have this form finalized so that it can go out on our permanent webpage to be able to be a call for artist proposal so that when we do have our required cultural district meetings twice a year, that we have some information from the community about what it is that they want to propose. Does that make sense?
Ask you a question. You've got a scoring system up there that totals up to 100. How did that come about? Is that just
It's just basically from other scoring. I mean,
because you
I
get
sent
20
it to
points,
Judy to-
20% of the score is basically just having the IRS letter and proving that you're experienced and qualified, right?
I didn't do the numbers, but sure. Okay. It's up for discussion. I put those up there just as a placeholder to say, what do you want up there?
Well, are you
so
asking us to vote on this one?
if you want to make change, I would say what I was asking for is for you to say, this is how you want me to change it. And then I'll make the changes and you vote pending those changes. That's what I'm asking for. So if you want to make other criteria, if tonight's not a good night to do that because you want to talk about it, then that's fine.
Well, so how you came up with that again was how the
But
number?
basically my experience as a
Okay.
grant writer for the
Okay.
past 14 years, that this is the type of thing that they ask.
Okay, so this is a similar type of
Yes.
allocation of points that you would see in other.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Right, on the decision tonight.
There's no time constraint on this one.
After Michelle speaking and everything, I would like to table this and get more information because things have been brought to light and I would like to revisit it and work on it.
You put a task force together like Tom did for the farmer's market. So you've got more, I mean, this steering committee thing, I can tell you right now, you have these meetings. We all have these meetings. It's the same people come to all the meetings. So we've got to involve the community. And people are bitching out there. I'm just going to say it. You got to show up to the meetings. We got steering committees for this, steering committees for that. We do hot topic huddles. We post it on the internet. We put it on Facebook and then nobody comes. So I'll make a table. I'll make a table. I'm going to make a table. I'm going to postpone the table. I'll make a motion that we postpone it, but we put some sort of, like Jill was saying, like the steering committee piece, right? Let's see if we can make a robust steering committee and then relook at your application process. And if you don't show up for this, then you can't really say what you're going to say. Okay. Oh, no, I get that with the seniors. I get that. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about, yeah, no, we can go to them. We know where they are. We know where Jenny is. We know where all the seniors are. I'm just saying for
Jenny
every other
makes
meeting
good
that we
food.
have in town where we're making decisions like this in committees, people have got to show up. And this is on YouTube, so I want everybody to hear that. Okay.
I'll be recognized. Okay, so point of clarification on your motion. My understanding is that the potential action item is simply the form. What I would suggest is that the motion, if you would consider it, be limited to just tabling it, the decision on the form until the council meeting in July. And that would give everybody time to do that and not bring into the motion the task force, because I think what you're really talking about is the task force that's involved in the process of evaluating them, not the form in and of itself. So if you would be willing to do that, I'm happy to second that motion, which would just be tabling it, the decision on the form until the July council meeting. Is it?
Make a motion that we table it till the July council meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and second and all yes. Yeah,
All against?
yes, approved. We're just, what? What do you want me to do? I think I did.
Speak into the microphone clearly and loudly. Do it again, please.
Did I hear me? She heard me? A motion has been made and seconded. We're going to table the motion and we voted and all approved. What else do I need to do? She says she has it.
Okay, I heard you say all against rather than all for, so I just wanted to clarify that initially, that's what.
I did.
The first, okay. Okay, I'm sorry, I misheard, I apologize. So, and just to clarify, I said there's no time limit on this. My preference would be that we have this whole process in place before the next time we have to go after a TCA grant, which would be in a January call. There's one that we have already decided we're going to go after for the July call for the Texas Commission on the Arts. So that one's already in motion, but in January, the next one's going to come up in January. I'd like to have all of this stuff organized so that we have this robust process in place by then. So there's plenty of time, but it's, yeah.
I have a question. This is a question for Jennifer and perhaps even Robert and the mayor. Tonight we have on this agenda to talk about, grants, the grant seeking, the grant awarding, and the public participation. And we seem to have moved to item 3. And I want to make sure, I know there's some people in the audience from the Downtown Business Alliance. Is there any other people that are here to speak at all? And when would that happen? Because I have a local business owner that was intended to be here tonight, could not, had an emergency arise. And so they sent me an email and asked me to read their comments into the record, like I emailed you earlier. I just need to know the appropriate time to do that. So when would be the appropriate time to share a business owner's comment about the grant process? Can we do that since we've moved? Can we go back and do that, Robert? Okay. Would you like, Mayor, would you want me to do it now or you want me to do it another time? I'll do it whenever you want.
I think it's important to read. I sent the agenda out to the Business Alliance because I wanted them to be here because I think it's important that they know the grant process. Some of them feel your door is not open to approach you. And so I wanted them to hear from you that the door is open and that you are willing to hear what they have to say. And so Simon from Carnalente had reached out. He was going to be here, but he ended up not being able to. So he's going to read his statement, and anybody else that would like to talk about your business and activities that you would like to have some help with grant and, with the chamber, music in the park. That was one of the questions I had back in November. How could we have the music in the park? And how does it get to the point of Peter Pan in the park? And how do these actions get check marks and then happen? And these are questions that I have had for a while. So I'm excited about this meeting. And another part of your job, Jill, is the economic development. And Mr. Sinot that has the 69 acres here, he would like to ask about help getting people to his 69 acres for economic development. So he had came tonight because he had a question about that, being your role as grant writer in economic development. And my other question was, how much time do you spend on grant writing? Do you feel you have the sufficient amount of time for economic development? Because your plate is really full with the grant writing. and you're on a lot of boards. And so these are just questions that people have asked. And I'm glad we're having this meeting to address them. And so for right now, we're going to go back because we are jumping all over the place
Yeah.
on this agenda. Because I had just
Agenda.
did the review of the grant and then all of a sudden we went into number 2. And now we seem to be on number 3 and then 4. So at this point, we're going to read Carnalente, Mr. Simon's report. I don't know. I think I'm back up at public participation.
I think we need to stick to our agenda tonight somehow, some way. We just
We
brought up
just
a lot
went
of
all over the place.
topics that were all over the map. And right now, this is a grant. We're learning about grants tonight. So
Right,
where are we?
Let me give a little context if you don't mind. You know, the agenda item for grants is about grant awarding. That's one of the sub points here. A number of people in the business community have asked me on different occasions, you know, how they could possibly secure grants or get information about how to get grants that might promote business downtown. And so I think this letter is very appropriate and to the point on the agenda. It's not an item that's not on the agenda. It just should have been read. I should have raised my hand earlier and did it. But I did make the point earlier that I wanted to make sure that we were, as a strategy at the city, that we were thinking about grants that might be available that could support our businesses. So that feeds along this line. So Simon wanted to be here tonight. He intended to be here. He had an event come up that he could not get away from and couldn't be. So he sent me this email this afternoon. I'd like to just read it. And this is exactly verbatim the way he sent the email. My name is Simon Madera, founder and CEO of the Taco Flats La Holly Restaurant Group in Austin, Texas. In 2020, I decided to take on the shuttered Micklethwait barbecue and plug in a pop-up concept named Carnalente, or quote, slow meat, end quote, in Spanish. I saw potential for downtown. I understood we had an uphill climb to establish a dynamic with the locals, attract customers from the surrounding ranch communities, and of course, attract visitors from the bigger cities. It will be 3 years in July, and we are still trying to figure out how to make the numbers work for our Smithville location. Since we opened, we have seen 4 restaurants close in the downtown area: Rio, Blazers, Backdoor Cafe, Red Claw to be exact. This is completely detrimental to the existence of downtown Smithville. I have recently started working on 2 lodging projects, one being the Red Owl Inn at 300 Garwood Lane. This is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath Victorian home overlooking a newly remodeled pool, garden, and 5 studios behind it. This quarter-century charming complex with clean and updated touches are meant to appeal to out-of-town visitors. The Blue Stem Ranch is our property at 148 East Highway 71, which is a ranch-style 4-bedroom, 3-bath home with 8 tiny homes. The property is located right on the river and will be promoted as a kayaker's retreat. As we complete the Red Owl and work with Bastrop County on the completion of the Blue Stem Ranch, we often question our ability to market these extremely unique properties. I ask myself that question because we often feel as a town, we lack any drive for changing how we market the town. It feels we are comfortable with the Jamboree, which honestly does not bring people to the downtown area. Christmas parade, quote, parentheses, again, how are you promoting businesses during this time, having them pay to be in a Christmas parade, but not funnel customers into businesses, in parentheses, and July 4th celebration. The events in town are having musicians play at parks versus restaurants and bars that have the capacity. It feels we are stuck in the same routine without anyone looking how they can fully impact operating businesses. I realize that this is my personal and business investments, but it cannot take 3 more years for us to make a marketing impact for the town, or I too will fail. We as a town full of resident and business owners need to see the value of tourism. I know we talk about it, but what are we actually doing about it, and how can I help? I want more insight on how our sales and use tax dollars are being spent, the same routines and the same administrative costs, or innovative new strategies. I want to see more involvement of local business owners, from shop store owners, artists, bed and breakfast owners, restaurants, and bar owners have the platform to give feedback on the budget. We are the ones paying for this, and we would like a seat at the table. On a final note, I understand the city council is taking steps to improve hot tax revenue so it benefits local businesses. I want to applaud that as I become a contributor to that city revenue stream. However, I want to know more. How are these funds being used for the businesses and individuals that are actually paying it? are we considered in these decisions? Is the city collecting all from all available avenues? This is not a question of misuse of funds. Rather, I believe there is conversation to be had on the best way to spend these funds moving forward. What has been done in the past is literally killing small businesses as opposed to lifting them. We need fresh ideas and need support of the council and other businesses to see the change we all want for the town. Thank you for your time, Beth Simon Madeira.
Okay, are we good? So as far as tonight coming together, Mr. Sinot, he owns the 69 acres out here and he was in town tonight, so I invited him to come by. Because the grant process and different things going on. So I don't know if this is something that we can talk about or if it's not on the agenda.
The grant process is on the agenda. Has Mr. Sinat signed up to speak? Or are you speaking on his behalf?
He's sitting here. Can I invite?
It's your
him?
meeting.
You're welcome to come up and speak. Just state who you are and your affiliation with Smithville, please. Come on up to the mic so everybody can hear you, please. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Sennett and I represent a company called Jesco Construction Company. We presently own a tract of land that's known as the Smithville Commercial Subdivision, a 69-acre tract located on 230 and Highway 71 there. I've been working on it several years and I'll have to say that we have had excellent communication with the city of Smithville and we're very, very pleased with our reception here. We have just recently closed a 10-acre tract on the back of the property. And it will be used for a commercial type manufacturing company. And it will employ from 25 to 50 people when it's up and rolling. We're now moving forward with putting hard dollars into engineering to make sure that we have all done before we have to do that before we start our construction. We hope to have our engineering done at the end of this year and move forward first of this quarter of next year into construction of the first phase of that project, which would be about a third of it to the back of the property. My thoughts are this basically, and this is it. I've had some real different ideas of different exposures about what goes there and when's it going to happen and what colors are going to be. We don't know those things. I can only tell you this. We have got one project that looks promising now. If we make it through the first phase and all our engineering, then we can move to phase two. One of our major issues right now is TxDOT and road cuts. They have changed their whole complexion on how they want to cut roads on the special 71 and those state highways. They're requiring a lot more expense, a lot more engineering than they ever did before, based upon the fact that 71 is scheduled to be by in 10 years a toll road from Austin to Columbus. So there's going to be a lot more traffic handled going down that road. So they're looking at very, very closely. And so we're approaching that now and have had several conversations with them. Hope to have some more and should have some definite information by the next 2 or 3 months where we're going on this. Having said that, getting back to the economic development here in Smithville, I want to first apologize to Ms. Struve from the standpoint that she's thrown an idea without any real parameters. And the reason is because I have no parameters. In developing this land, we've developed it as we go. Every lead I've been thrown to me, I've tried to seal. So far, we've sealed one of these to a point. So I'd like to make sure that we understand that I'm not out selling 50 acres. I'm not out looking for a 50-acre user. I'm not out looking to overstretch the city on the utilities and so forth and so on. It's going to be something that has to go in phases. Hopefully that when we get our first project going here, and we'll be looking at 100,000 plus square foot tilt wall, very, very beautiful building, that it will help us draw people and other businesses. I've been approached by several local businesses about property and buying there, but it's not as simple as selling them a piece of land. It has to be subdivided, and we have to make sure that we have the streets and utilities and everything in place before I can actually sell this land to them. So it's kind of a misnomer as to what people conceive it to be and what it actually is. So having said that, I think that we're proceeding now with a different attitude about it. And the attitude is that we would rather have 10 to 15 small, medium-sized retail businesses. I know that the city of Smithville has always talked to me about motel, hotel, conference center, meeting rooms. Where we hear that, and we would like to do that. I think there's some merit in doing that. So far, I haven't gotten anybody who's willing to take it on from a standpoint of investing in it. But I think there's some good possibilities here, so we're open to that. But having said that, I think that we need to come to an understanding, and that is, when I say that, I think economic development and us need to come to an understanding that what we really have and how we really want to market it. And it's not 50 acres to some company that coming here from wherever. It's an acre, it's 2 acres. It's those small tracts that we can seal and bring businesses to the city of Smithville that will be good for it and the economy of this area. So having said that, I hope I haven't left anything out. I hope I haven't bored you with my conversation. But if you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them the best I can.
Do I have any questions? Do you have any questions? I'm very interested in a motel coming, a conference center. I think we have everything here in Smithville to house these people. We have Busher State Park, we have Riverbend Park, but we need a hotel. People come in to enjoy our town, and they leave and go back to Bastrop, or they go to LaGrange. Hampton Inn has reached out. They have questions I cannot answer. They have questions about economic development. They have questions about what the city can do. They have lots of questions. And I think it's a possibility if we could all work together and with you and to help. I would love to see a hotel and conference
It's gonna
center
take
come
a
here.
concerted effort.
We're
make
going
it
to do the
happen.
effort, but
And why I'm talking, I'll tell you one more thing, and that is that nationwide, big box stores aren't building, they're closing. We have a scheduled big box closing stores of 20 to 30% in the next 24 months. And I'm talking about the big ones. They can't make it anymore. The internet marketing is killing them. So the interest we've had in the past in all these big box stores coming out of the clear blue and building here like happened in Bastrop is not happening anymore. So we have to go back to basics. I hope that's where we can go.
I mean, you said something, you said motel, hotel, conference, meeting
I'm
rooms.
sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, you had mentioned, okay, yeah, motel, hotel, conference, meeting rooms, just like the mayor. You talked about motel, hotel, conference, meeting rooms, right? But then you made the comment that, okay, there's no investors, no one has taken this on. So can you explain? You haven't found any investors. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Times right now in relationship to the national economy. And I think we're all aware of that. So
Sorry, we just wanted everybody to hear what you just
I,
said.
I
Thank you.
can, if I just went over there so I could hear you because I couldn't answer you if I didn't hear you. Any other questions from me, folks?
Stopping
I
by.
appreciate you all
I know
letting
you
me
do.
burn your time and bring you up to speed on what I know. It might be boring, but that's all I've got to tell you tonight. So,
Thank you.
okay, good night, folks.
Okay. Jill?
I just wanted to say, Mr. Sinnott, it's been really a pleasure working with you and I look forward to doing more. And we'll just continue to, work, try to do what we can for that property. It's an important piece. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we're on number 4, discussion and action on community engagement coordinators signage proposal. No, we're not. Number 3. We did discussion and action, no cultural district form for approval. We did, what did we do?
I apologize. I took out of order the public participation. There's 2 forms that we're talking about. One is the cultural district form. The other is the community engagement, community service award form. That's more important for y'all to decide tonight because this is, like we said, the community service line is the thing that directly goes and impacts your budget. The thing about what we have for the cultural district is we do have a form that will be using from this point forward, regardless of when you put in the form that you will approve, that will be able to provide some funding, some information to you about what people are trying to fund for the cultural district. This is for the community service application. So if you look at the funders that you all agreed on last year, that was, I think, the previous one, that was just provided for your information. Last year you went to, that was that, Jennifer, go back one. So this is just a reminder of what y'all did last year.
Yes,
We approved that budget last budget cycle.
that's right.
And now
So-
you're showing us a form that now you want the non-for-profits to be able to fill out to submit for this year, and you need approval on that form, correct?
That's correct. This is just an overview of last year was the first time that we tried to start approaching formalizing or standardizing how people request funds for community service. And again, we were calling it either the philanthropic fund or the community service budget line. And so if you go to the next slide, please. Jennifer, thank you. So we were working on this form. I did a little research. I looked at other county entities, municipalities to see, well, how are they structuring these letters? And some of them give a little bit of an overview. There's an application, there's a budget, there's a request for W-9. Basically, they create some type of request packet, and every person gets this, so it's standard. And then on there as well, right in the center, I don't know if you have a copy of this in your packets. You do? Okay. And you can see there's I try to create something of an application timeline, but this is open for you all to look at, to edit, to ask any questions so that we can close this, and then I can get this out as soon as possible so we can open that window so that people can start sending us applications or requests.
Was all culture district. I
Yeah, we have
apologize.
shifted to
So,
community service one now.
okay,
yes.
so number 4 is discussion and action, community engagement coordinator signage. No.
No.
Nope, not mine. No, no.
This is number 3, the first half, discussion and action on a new philanthropic form. There was 2 forms you were going to approve. It was a
Can I
cultural
make a
district.
motion?
Yes.
Please make a motion.
Okay, I can tell you right now, Bastrop County's already put out the requests, okay? So if you are applying for money for Bastrop County, they've already done it. So like he's showing you on the timeline right here, an application deadline would be July 10th of 2023. That makes sense because the counties are already requesting for proposal. So if we are going to have the non-for-profits be able to submit an application, we do need to give them this window of time. So we have time when we have our budget workshop, and then this thing closes, then we're going to know if we're going to be able to fund the projects, because there'll probably be like 30 or 40 people that will apply. So I'm going to make a motion tonight. This form looks very similar to, it looks like you've done your homework, Andy. Thank you. Very similar to what Bastrop County uses. In fact, theirs is probably maybe a little simpler. But as far as putting the timeline in here, the dates in here, I make a motion, we accept this form so we can get going on this project before our budget workshop. That'd be my motion.
I want to second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion has been made and second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Oh. All against? All against? Nope. Nobody against. The motion has passed. Motion is approved.
Okay, before we leave this, there's one other piece of this. So if you go to the next slide. This budget request is something that we've, the Texas Commission on the Arts is very similar to what the Texas Commission on the Arts requires. What I would like to know is if, since you've tabled the cultural district form, this would go with the cultural district form, and I'll bring that together. My question for you is if you wanted to have a similar kind of a budget form when you send out that information to the community service people. So how granular do you want a budget to be? Or for example, if they're requesting over a certain threshold, like $5,000 or $10,000, then does that trigger this kind of a form? Or do you not even need to know, as long as you have sort of the basic ideas of what it is that they're going to be spending?
Okay, so what you're asking is, like, if it's over a threshold of some non-for-profits asking for $5,000, I would recommend they show us a budget. If it's below $5,000, maybe not. Maybe we can discuss that. But I know when, like, for Bastrop County, they give you a limit. You can ask up to $3,000, right? And you don't have to show a budget. But it looks here like we're saying, hey, they're not going to support. First off, we don't have enough money to support most non-for-profits asking for $5,000. Okay. So I don't know how difficult do we want this to be for the non-for-profits that are submitting?
Personally, I'm fine with not having the budget requirement personally. So the motion that was made and passed just stands and you don't do anything until the council meeting. That's
Okay.
my opinion.
Okay. All right. We just wanted guidance from y'all because we didn't want to assume that you wanted or didn't want how granular you wanted to get. So
Right.
I think if it's under $5,000, it's really, it's a lot, it's obvious what they do and they're going to use that money for good things. If it's over 5,000, it seems like maybe that's a good threshold. I'm not, for the cultural district stuff, I have to know this information if we're going to go for cultural district grants. And so I would like to standardize that process for the cultural district side of things, but I'll revisit this. I'll put it all together at the next council meeting so you can go through that part all together as one thing. And thank you for your guidance. I appreciate it.
I'm going to be very interested in a materiality threshold at some point in that.
Yeah, exactly.
Before. Oh, come on back.
We're switching gears. Once again, we're back on the art project. These are the 4 proposals that came up. And I would rather not say anything up front other than we have the applicant listed on there and the concept next to it. And so you have information in your packet. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
These are the ones that have to be done by September 30th, correct?
That is correct. We have to choose, you would have to choose from.
Rolling blackout.
Miss Judy, do you want to say anything about this? You're welcome to come forward, Miss Judy. We're just all trying to understand, and I appreciate your input.
The only thing I wanted to add for this part of it is that it is an ABC Arts Bridging Community 2.0. So the design of this part of the project is a participatory design, community art, so that people are putting their hands in with the artists and hopefully sharing community conversations at the same time.
So that is what this discussion at community engagement coordinator signage proposal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently we're going to remove the heart of the megalopolis. That's a Jurassic age dinosaur. I don't know, but that's what this project basically does, correct? You're going to replace that sign with something
Right.
new.
When I
Yeah.
sent out the call to artists, I did bring up that phrase that they could, we were leaving it up to them if they wanted to continue to incorporate that into the new sign or in some way symbolically put that in there, but we were not making it a hard requirement. So it possibly could go away. Yes.
For these projects, everybody's still, you're still looking at all 5, correct? Or excuse me, 4.
That's right.
Okay, so all of them are still in the mix.
Yes, all
Okay.
4 of those are in the mix.
If I can just clarify also, I was in email communication with Heidi Little about her Hearts Across the Tracks project. When I read it, I didn't understand how she was going to incorporate what she said into that particular sign. And I had recommended to her that maybe she provide that as one of our proposals that we would consider for the cultural district later on down the road. She never got back in touch with me, so I'm assuming that she has not withdrawn that application. If you all don't decide to go with her project, then I would still recommend that she would apply for, because she was talking about a mural in her. So I think she just didn't really know that what the parameters of the sign was exactly. I'm not sure that she knew what we were talking about exactly. So. And one other just point of clarification, the sign belongs to the Chamber of Commerce and Keep Smithville Beautiful. They are here tonight. And so in what among discussion, then their input is going to be important as well as far as what this is going to be about.
Mayor, we might want to have, I know we don't have a lot of time. This has got to be done by the 30th of September, but if they could, each of the artists could give us a presentation. If we're going to vote, we're voting on this. This is St. David's funding, correct? But the city council has input and voting. So if we could have the presentation by the artist, I know you've given us all the written details, but I think it'd be important for each artist at the July meeting. Okay, so they have August, they got 60 days. Might have to work weekends, but they got time to complete it, I would think. I haven't chanced to really dig into these projects, but do you think 60 days is fair that they could complete the projects just from your overview, Andy?
Oh, from my perspective, honestly, I gotta say no. I
Yeah.
think we push these artists
Sounds like
right to the
workshop.
edge of, this is it. They need the time and we were, honestly, I was hoping to walk away with you all looking at the 4 proposals and saying, this one looks like the one we'd like to go with. I know it's not fair to you folks either. I'm not.
Is there any recommendations made? Is there any groups represented in the community chamber, city staff, anybody that makes a recommendation for which one we should go with without us seeing them personally?
So just to Michelle, who's
Right.
here. So
I know
you would
she's
have
here.
her. I mean, that's maybe not fair to the other artists that are here, but if you want to go ahead and.
Hi there, Susie Cannon on behalf of the chamber. So Jill did approach me and Caroline Noya as the chair of Keep Smithville Beautiful, which is a nonprofit organization. The sign is owned by the chamber and Keep Smithville Beautiful. Apparently it's a 9-year-old sign. Jill forwarded to me and Caroline the Unity in Bloom proposal and the Hearts Across the Tracks proposal. I read them Friday evening around 9-10 o'clock. The 3 of us were on a text thread together and we made plans, and me and Jill and Caroline met Saturday afternoon and talked about this project and talked through those 2 proposals.
Between the two, I was overwhelmingly in support of the Unity in Bloom proposal. I specifically liked, and I had no idea it was you, Michelle, but I specifically liked that in her proposal, she talked about how, so really the proposal is that there would be these little tiles that go around. So the frame, the metal frame, that would all stay. It's just the plywood in the center that's painted the cream color and says, you know, y'all come back to Smithville. What I liked about her proposal is that it involves, I think, making 88 little tiles that are 4 inches by 4 inches. And she detailed all of the different ways that she would go out into the community and that the community could paint on those 4 inch by 4 inch tiles. And so that just really spoke to my heart that so many people would get to be involved in that. So that was this weekend. And to be perfectly honest, Jill has forwarded to me. I thought 2, but I see 3 there. And just to be completely honest, I've not read the other 2. I've not read the other 2. I'm sorry. I don't know if that was yesterday or today that you forwarded them to me, but I ran out of time and I haven't reviewed them. So the Hey Y'all and Future Smithville.
So Michelle's in the room, right? Michelle, is it the same Michelle? How long would it take you to complete the project? Mm,
So y'all could have it.
Wow.
Show on the back
September
or
30th.
tiles
Be
and
done by
everything on the
September
back of
30th
that.
Is what you're saying. You could be finished by September 30th. Oh, cool. Okay. So what's the other part of the? So if we had to, okay, I think this is pretty important. This is as you're coming into Smithville, there's this sign, okay? And we've been talking about this sign for 9 years, replacing that sign, maybe not 9 years, but I know that you put this out, Andy, you put it out. And then now you got down to 4 people. And we've really only looked at one really in detail, and that's Miss Michelle. When's our city council's the 10th? So it's-
10, yes, it's the city council.
if you had to make a presentation for city council on the 10th and you were selected, could you finish it by the 30th of September? That's a big ask.
Can I answer your question with a question? No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I guess my question is with like all the facade projects that are all over Smithville and all the murals, I'm not clear if they're under this certain extreme scrutiny or the same. So I just want to make sure that whatever precedent y'all are setting with, and I know it seems weird that I'm asking this question, but this feels like if we are going to require presentations from artists for all public art in the city of Smithville, I just want to make sure that that's a precedent that y'all really want to be setting. Because there's a lot of facades, there's a lot of murals, there's a lot of signs, and I just want to make sure that that's what you really want to do before I say anything else.
I looked at all the presentations. Okay, I've seen the 2 by Heidi and I've seen 3 and 4. And this one right here is going to be done by local people and it's got a local young artist that's going to do the lettering and stuff. To me, this is the best presentation. And I think you can have everybody speak if you want to, but I think you're going to come to this conclusion.
Regardless, I think that you've met all the criteria that were set forth in terms of timing and application. Your proposal is in good order as far as I'm concerned. I had one question for you, which is I'm saying that I would not like to delay this. I would like to have this voted on tonight based on the process has been fulfilled. I did want to ask you specifically because what really struck me is you are using a local artist, graduate. Can you give us a little more background on her? Because it's very attractive to the entire process and important to me. If some more background on, is it Anna?
Wish she was here. I didn't know that this was gonna.
No,
she's-
it's
she's
fine.
actually-
She's not
she's
required to
more
be here.
anxious than I am about public
Yeah.
speaking. So, she's remarkable. I actually learned about her because I make pottery and I wanted to have somebody that I could mentor to help through also learning how to be a professional artist. And she was introduced to me by the high school art teacher. And she's an incredible young woman, and she is incredibly talented with her ability to specifically do hand lettering. It's incredible. And I don't know how many more times I can say incredible. I think what I love about including her in this is that she does not meet the criteria that I personally think she would have been perfectly capable doing this by herself. And that's what I was coaching her on. But one of the criteria on the form was to prove that they had professional experience and that they had references. And so my reason to really stand next to her and beside her is because it's really important to me that we help to grow future artists and not just keep recycling the same people in Smithville.
Fulfill that experience criteria.
That's why I joined.
Yeah, and so I'm making that statement for everybody here. Mayor, I'm willing to make a motion unless you need more questions.
I'm ready for a motion.
We accept the Unity and Bloom concept for the community engagement signage proposal.
I second it.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion is approved.
Thank
You're
you.
back.
I'm back to complete my part of this process, which I started by explaining to you all how this project came into existence. And my follow-up on this now is I have a report that I need to put out to the public of Smithville, to the residents of Smithville, detailing how we got from kitchen table talks to so many ideas to a survey to this process, and how we selected someone so that I can now let the community know that we're moving forward into the next phase of this project. Okay, thank you.
One comment.
You can.
Just one comment. I think it was a good point raised about setting precedent, but I would point out, I think there are varying levels of public art where they take place, their prominence, whether on private property, not on private property. I think there are, variations of significance. So I wouldn't want the council to shy away from wanting to see certain projects come for an in-person presentation, not just for our own benefit, but for the public too.
Anything else? The meeting is adjourned.